Good evening to you and a warm welcome if you're just joining. We start with this story. The uMkhonto Sizwe Party has appointed Brian Molefe as its new Treasurer General. Molefe replaces Mpiyakhe Limba, who was appointed to the position less than a year ago. In a statement, the party says Molefe brings extensive experience in public administration, governance, finance and organizational leadership. It adds that his deep understanding of complex financial systems makes him a suitable candidate. Meanwhile, Colleen Makhubele has been removed as Chief Whip and replaced by Mmabatho Mokoena-Zondi. However, Makhubele remains a member of Parliament. The MK Party has also announced the reinstatement of Vanessa Calvert as the Chief of Staff in the Parliamentary caucus with immediate effect. All right, let's get some perspective on this now. And Newzroom Africa's Kanita Hunter joining me in studio tonight to explain exactly what is going on in the MK Party. Yet another change in its parliamentary caucus. There is one name, though, Colleen Makhubele, biting the dust this time around, and she was the person who was responsible for Dr. John Hlophe losing his position at one point. Take us through what you make of this.
So the only certainty in the MK Party, it seems, is uncertainty. And the rotating door of leadership has been a consistent from the beginning of 2024 with this mass turnaround of leadership almost on a 2-monthly to 3-monthly basis for over the course of the last 2 years. And so the last reshuffle that we saw in the top leadership was the axing of John Hlophe. And that was because he had demoted Colleen Makhubele as Chief Whip of the party. And that seemed to have angered Jacob Zuma, who made her the Chief Whip. That was only in November. And suddenly now, in the start of the year, Colleen Makhubele is no longer the Chief Whip, and an MP, a little-known MP, has been placed in that position. Now, it's a rotating set of chairs that around Jacob Zuma, where it's hard to predict who actually has the power and who has his support and who's not. Because there was a time when Mzwanele Manye was portrayed as a very, very strong Zuma loyalist, replaced Sizwe Ngubane as Chief Whip, and then he too was replaced. Remember the times of Floyd Shivambu and Floyd Shivambu kind of representing this new order in the MK Party, only for that to explode not so long after that. Similarly is the case around Colleen Makhubele, seen to be Zuma's person in leadership and was protected. I mean, it was unthinkable somewhat that someone like John Hlophe, who sort of blindly followed Zuma into the MK Party, would have been dealt with the way he was, and yet he was dispensed of. Let me pause you there
for a moment, because you're touching on a person that I think many of us are wondering what his fate is. Where is Dr. John Hlophe? We were led to believe that he is still part of the leadership of the MK Party, and then in comes the man who came from the ANC recently, Tony Yengeni, to deputize President Zuma within the party. Yet there is no mention of Dr. John Hlophe.
And he at some point was saying that he was going to fight his removal, and that's kind of just fizzled out. So it will be interesting to see where he actually stands in that regard. But again, this merry-go-round of MK leadership, it's not often attached with an explanation. In the case now of Brian Molefe as this Treasurer General, they're saying that, he's good with numbers, basically. But remember, money has always been the dividing factor within the MK Party.
Why is that?
And so it goes as far back as the accusations around made by Jabulani Khumalo to say that it was a fight over access to resource that Zuma and his family, at the time Duduzile Zuma was a key figure in the party, was using the MK bank account as their private bank account. Those accusations have been sustained all along. Every time there has been these fallouts, etc. As far back as Floyd Shivambu, when he left, he made a similar assertion that it was being minced for money by Zuma and what did he call it, a personal stockveld of Zuma's family. And so money has, and access to money. Remember, with the 40 seats that they have in Parliament, there is an allocation that happens. So beyond fundraising, there is funds that Parliament allocates to the MK party based on the representation that they have, as well as the representation they have in KwaZulu-Natal. There's money that they get from the IEC as a political party, but that money has to be accounted for in relation to constituency work that has to take place. So now, this decision, we didn't know who that Treasurer General was when that person was appointed a year ago or less than a year ago, right? We didn't know who it was. It was portrayed as these are the people that Baba trusts to run the party. And so now it seems to be like the guy in charge, in the absence now of John Hlophe, in the absence of Colleen Makhubele, the person that the former president of the country and the head of the MK party relies on is Brian Molefe.
As we close the conversation briefly, Coneta, with all these constant leadership changes in the MK, you write about this almost every other day, politics I mean. What should the people of KZN be thinking? Should they be comfortable or possibly nervous, given that it is a likelihood that the MK party could potentially govern that province if indeed the current government of provincial unity falls apart?
I think that the MK party has not been able to portray any stability from the beginning, from before it even contested the election. It has been an instability being the only constant in that top leadership structure for the last 2 years. The second element of it is that leadership is dispensable on the basis of who is within, it appears to be who is in Zuma's inner circle or not. And that's why you can make a change as late as November last year with regards to the caucus, and then that decision can be overturned or reversed or changed 2 months later. The third thing is that there is a direct consequence on these leadership battles and the instability in top leadership on the party itself. If you take their performance in Parliament, if you take their representation in the different legislatures, more so in KwaZulu-Natal, it seems like the MK party is rudderless for the most part, and that will have a consequence on whether or not it can govern. This is a party that is unable to firmly do its work as an official opposition. Does the electorate and does the people of KZN then believe that it has what it takes to actually govern in KwaZulu-Natal?
Coneta Hunter, thank you very much for explaining that to us. Very, very well explained indeed. We're going to have to continue watching the space as it regards the MK party.